right onto the podcast because I kept teasing it. But I want to lead into it by asking this: what's the plan to actually get you to the Paralympics? Because it's contingent. It sounds like a big part of it is contingent on publicity. Was the podcast Shredding for Gold, linked in this episode's description, is that, I should say, a part of getting the message and getting the word out there about blind snowboarding and getting it international enough so that it can become a Paralympic sport?
Absolutely. So the original plan, actually, so I had applied for what's called the Holman Prize, and it's done through the Lighthouse for the Blind in San Francisco, California. So I had applied for that, and basically what that is for, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Holman Prize,
I think I
but
heard it on Outlook when you did your interview with Maxwell.
yeah, Maxwell Ivy.
Yeah, that's it. Couldn't place his
Yeah.
last name.
So basically what the Holman Prize is that anyone who's blind can apply each year. And basically if you have like a dream or a goal that you want to accomplish within like a certain period of time, you can apply to get a whole chunk load of funding for whatever it is you are wanting to accomplish. So my original plan was actually to make a website to like bridge the gap for resources for para snowboarding, specifically for blind snowboarders, because I found when I first started that I had to dig a lot for like the resources that I found. They weren't all in like one nice little website area. I had to do like a whole bunch of research online and like calling different organizations and stuff to get resources to help me. So my goal was to create a website where I could link a bunch of resources together, but also make a community for blind athletes or people who are blind who were interested in learning more about the sport and potentially becoming athletes down the road. So that was the original plan for applying for the Holman Prize. So Maxwell and I actually both, so Max had applied for the Holman Prize for something completely different, but we both had made it to the semifinal round. So Max's idea for the Holman Prize, why he wanted to apply, was to create what is now the WY Excuse Network. Mm-hmm. And so it's a podcasting network for people who are blind or people who want to talk about some aspect of being blind. And so the WY Excuse Network, he wanted to set it up and he wanted to help other people out in the world who wanted to become podcasters or who were podcasters that wanted to have, wanted to get more like viewers and supporters and stuff. So that's why he wanted the funding for the Holman Prize to help like create the WY Excuse Network. So unfortunately, neither of us won the Holman Prize, but we ended up to apply for the Holman Prize, you have to do like a 90-second pitch video that we had to put up on, they ended up putting up on their YouTube page so anyone could see them. And so Max had actually seen my pitch video up on YouTube and ended up reaching out to me and saying he had also applied to the Holman Prize as well. So we ended up chatting, so we ended up starting to chat, and we chatted over social media for a little while. And then we had a Zoom meeting and we were talking about weeks to like learn about each other's why they were like applying for the Holman Prize. And so we talked about his reason, and then we talked about mine. And then he was like, well, would you want to create a podcast would you want to like create the podcast to like help with what you're doing? Because like you can create the podcast and like share your adventures, but also help with like networking with other like blind snowboarders on their teams and like different organizations that are out there. So I was like, ooh, that kind of sounds actually really cool. That would be really good. So that's kind of how the podcast came to be, is where we just found each other through like the Holman Prize and just like started to chat and like bouncing ideas off of each other and like brainstorming. And then I was like, well, this would be super cool to have the podcast, because suddenly we can share my adventure, but also share other people's adventures as they were working towards the Paralympics too. So
it's like the 2 or 3 degrees of separation. That's a great networking story at its finest, eh?
It really is. It's been working out. So the podcast itself is growing a little bit more each week, and even like the WYXU's network. There was only my podcast and Maxwell's podcast on there, but now that's growing as well. There's a bunch more that are on there. And there's a new podcast they're actually launching very soon on the WYXU's network. There's a few actually launching very soon. So
cool. I'll link that
it's growing.
Below.
So yeah, definitely.
Craving even more disability content? Links to the full podcast episode and other great clips are only a tap or click away, just waiting for you in the description.